Hey, poker people, it's Sky Matsuhashi, and this is the Smart Poker Study Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by 888poker.com, the only online site offering qualifier satellites into this year's WSOP in Las Vegas. Visit 888poker.com, use offer code SMART888, and join today. Yesterday in episode 130, I answered 3 questions about making the leap to full-time pro status, using outs and odds to make good decisions, and facing good players. Hey, poker people, thanks for joining me for another Q&A episode. If you like what I'm doing here, 5-star this puppy and share it with PokerPal. I really appreciate it, I do, thank you very much. Almost there, day 6 of 7 leading up to my 28 days of poker study challenge. To learn right alongside me for 4 full weeks, visit www.smartpokerstudy.com/28 days to get all the details. Okay, no wasting time. We're all so busy today, so let's get to our 2 great questions. Please visit the show notes page for everything I discussed today, along with screenshots and links at www.smartpokerstudy.com/pod131. While you're there, please sign up for the weekly boost for exclusive poker strategy emailed to you weekly. Alrighty, let's get to it. Gambate!
And now for our feature presentation.
Alrighty, question number 1 today is about hand history reviews, and this one comes to us from Robert. It was in response to an email I sent out asking everyone for what areas they'd like to work on. He told me that he wants to work on how to properly do session reviews. Alrighty, well this is a very good question, a good study question. Thank you very much, Robert. I love hand history reviews. I think it's the best way to spend your off-the-felt time. Videos, books, podcasts, of course, articles, they're all great for learning information. But hand history reviews are where you see how well you're putting to use that info that you're learning. You'll be using Poker Tracker 4 for every single review, as well as an equity calculator like Flopzilla or Equilab, or even something more robust like CardRunner ZV. I always start with the hands that I've tagged from a previous session, or maybe I'll go through the biggest losing hands if things went really terribly the night before. I also review hands by whole card strength. Like, if I notice I played a Queen 7 suited from the middle position, I'll dive into that to see why I played such a weak hand in an earlier position. As you're going through the hands, you're looking to assign a range to your opponents and see if you can narrow that range as the hand progresses through the streets. Part of your hand history review is learning what you can about each opponent you're up against. When you spot something worth remembering, take a note of it within Poker Tracker 4 under that player's note editor. You want this note available to you during future sessions. Try to think about their player type and just make sense of their actions. Did that play, was it logical in any way? How do you play in similar spots? Would other player types play differently? How can you exploit this in the future? Besides looking at your opponent's plays, you've got to understand why you made the street-by-street plays that you did. If you catch a mistake, take note of it in your poker journal. Also, commit to not making those mistakes again. You can help yourself avoid these mistakes by reviewing them in your warm-up before each session. And this doesn't have to be just a list of mistakes. You can turn each of your mistakes into an action item instead. For example, maybe a mistake you wrote down in the past could be called too much to chase my draw on the flop and turn. Instead of doing this, you can make an action item, and the action item could be compare the pot odds with the equity of your hand before you decide to continue with a draw. Or another mistake that you might have written in the past is failing to c-bet when your opponent's fold to c-bet stat was very high. The action item for this could be always check the fold to c-bet stat before you act on the flop. You'll get better at doing hand history reviews as you do them day after day. Run through 1 or 2 hands daily and go through the full process, Start by assigning a pre-flop range, then narrow that range through the streets. Take note of opponent mistakes and your own, and create an action item for each of your mistakes to get you proactively working on your game. Alrighty, enjoy reviewing those hands, Robert. Oh my, 888poker.com is where you want to be, and they've got a great deal for us. They offer a killer $10 instant bonus for first-time depositors, but you must be a non-US player. Lucky you, Australia! What you gotta do is open an account and deposit $10 or more using promo code SMART888. With 888, you also get an $88 free bonus package just for registering, no deposit required. But of course, your goal is to take advantage of all the fish over there at 888 Poker. So I know that you're going to be making that deposit. And for doing so, 888 Poker also has a double your money bonus for first-time depositors up to $400. Yep, 888poker.com is the place to build your bankroll faux show. 888 was recently ranked in the top 4 of softest online sites by thepokerbank.com, and they know their stuff. So what are you waiting for? It's time for you to find some fish at 888 and put to use what you're learning here. Sign up at 888poker.com and use promo code SMART888 to get your free $10 and start your way to the WSOP. It's the only poker site offering online qualifier satellites starting at just 1 cent. 888poker.com is for non-US players only. Guess I'm moving. Canada, here I come. In just 2 days on April 2nd, I'm starting a challenge for myself that I'm calling the 28 Days of Poker Study. I'll stream my daily study sessions for 28 days in a row on Twitch. I'm going to show you how I set goals, plan my week of study, then how I actually go about doing my studies. I'll use tons of study techniques from my new book, How to Study Poker Volume 1, which of course you can find on ebook or as an ebook on Amazon right now. I'll also be streaming my play on ACR each day during the challenge. You'll see me in the mornings working on strengthening my game. Then you'll see me later in the day putting my skills to use on the virtual felt. It's gonna be fun. Go to www.smartpokerstudy.com/28days to get more details and to join me. By signing up, you'll receive special emails from me with my study plans, poker content I'm going to be learning from, and all the lessons and skills I ingrain into my game. This will all be a part of Volume 2 of How to Study Poker, and you can get it for free just for following my challenge. Oh yeah, and if you purchase my ebook and leave an honest review, please forward me a copy of that, and as a thank you, I'll send you the audiobook version of my book. Alrighty, back to class, poker people. Alrighty, question 2 today comes to us from Danny. He says, I need to work on assessing stats and ranges on players that fall outside the obvious. For example, what to do in position against a player with a 45 to 60% c-bet range. What to do against a player with c-bet stats at 55, 45, and 38% on the flop, the turn, and the river. I am comfortable exploiting the obvious over or under bettors, but these mid-ranges are tougher. My other leak, I think, is getting involved in too many big pots, c-betting too much, or turn-betting too much. This aggression bloats the pots, and then I have to face tough decisions with one-pair type hands on the river. Alrighty, thanks for your email, Danny. Let's go ahead and dive in here. So, first off, I don't know if you're using Flopzilla, but if not, get it now. It's the best software around for understanding ranges and how they interact with boards. In your email, you said you're a Mac user, so go ahead and install that program called Parallels so that you can run Windows programs. Just visit www.parallels.com/products/desktop. And to learn how to use Flopzilla once you get it, watch SplitSuit's video called How to Use Flopzilla. Just do a quick YouTube search and it'll pop up, it's right there. I also put it in the show notes for this page. And like I mentioned in that previous question, what you need to do is 1 or 2 hand history reviews every single day with all the steps I outlined previously. As you do this with Flopzilla, you should pay attention to the statistics section to see what part of their total range at that time, the flop, turn, or river, what part of that range has certain draws or made hands. If you're thinking about, hey, what kind of hands make up a 50% c-betting range, take a look and add or subtract hands until you get to 50%. Same thing on the turn and on the river. Narrow the streets as you go, and then look for how, or try to build those percentages in the different stats that you're seeing in your opponents. The more work you do like this off the tables, the more those numbers and ranges enter your thoughts as you actually play your sessions. When you begin to realize how infrequently, for example, a 25% opening range, how infrequently that kind of range hits the flop, you'll be more prone to calling or raising versus players who c-bet it just too frequently. If somebody's c-bet is at 70%, but their range hits top pair and open-ended straight draws or better only 34% of the time, then you know that they're about 50-50 to be weak, and you can adjust your play accordingly. After spending time studying off the tables, you can make this type of work your in-session focus. Every hand that sees the flop, mentally assign the pre-flop raiser a range, and then try to think about how often that range hits the flop and how often it actually has a hand worthy of c-betting for value. For that other leak of playing too many bloated pots, the first step to solving this is to not call 3-bets as much. Devise a range of hands worth calling the 3-bet after opening and hands you can 4-bet with. Everything else you have to make yourself fold. I sent Danny a hand range chart he can use, and you can get it as well by going to the show notes page for today and filling out that form near the top of the page. Also, you need to be much more selective about the hands you 3-bet with from the blinds. Playing out a position in a 3-bet pot is not a bread and butter situation. Run a filter in Poker Tracker 4 for times you saw the flop and you raised pre-flop any 3-bet. This will show you all the hands where you made the 3-bet pre-flop. Hopefully, your results are positive here, which means you're making good 3-bet decisions. Next, run a filter for saw flop and called a pre-flop 3-bet. This is likely negative. Run through all of these hands and review whether or not your call was warranted. Also, count how many of your losing hands were played out of position on the flop and how many were played in position on the flop. You'll probably find that a majority of these hands were out of position and possibly with hands you should have folded. Take note of these mistakes and create ways to not allow them to happen again, like making ranges and sticking to them. And a big part of your question was post-flop play. So look for these same instances, not exactly 3-bet, but look for instances when you're doing a lot of post-flop betting on the flop and the turn, or even calling bets on the flop or the turn, and just look for the biggest losers and look for instances where you maybe should have raised to try to steal the pot away, or just folded because your hand was just too weak in this bloated pot, or this pot that's constantly getting bigger because there's so much action going into it. Alrighty, good luck, Danny. Challenge! Here's my challenge to you for this episode. Run those 3-bet filters in Poker Tracker 4 that I just mentioned. Find the spots and the hands where you're losing the most, and resolve to fixing them. Correcting bloated pot mistakes is a great first step to increasing your win rate, or even taking it from a negative to a positive. Now it's your turn to take action and do something positive for your poker game.
Now get it on.
Thank you so much for listening today. This episode isn't complete until you head to the show notes page at www.smartpokerstudy.com/pod129 for screenshots and links to everything discussed today, and to discover ways in which you can support the podcast and keep me going. Make sure you join in on my 28 days of poker study journey by going to smartpokerstudy.com/28days. Go there, learn more about it, and also please check out my ebook, How to Study Poker Volume 1 on Amazon.com. Alrighty, if you could type out the words Smart Poker Study, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, Amazon, and YouTube. Or just send me an email to sky@smartpokerstudy.com. And thank you to 888poker.com. Don't forget your $10 first depositor bonus at 888poker by going to www.888poker.com and using offer code SMART888. It's good for non-US players only. Alrighty, poker people. Tomorrow I'll be answering 2 more of your questions, so keep them coming. Word of mouth is the best advertising, so thank you very much for sharing this show with other poker people. Your sharing and caring is what helps us grow. Until next time, study smart, play much, and make your next session the best one yet.